out the motherfucking pack. Right out the niggas don't know how to act.
Hello, and welcome back to yet another mock draft. Man, I don't know how long this video is going to be. If I had to guess, I'd say around 2 hours. It's for sure going to be the longest video on my channel. Um, we got a two-round mock draft, man. Post combine, a lot of moves are already taking place in free agency. The landscape is becoming a little more clear. Not as clear as it will be, come draft day, but we're getting there, man. This might be like my penultimate mock draft. I don't know how much time is left, but if the draft's at like the end of March or something like that, I probably will only have like one more. So yeah, man, grab some popcorn, something to drink, and because it's gonna be a long one. But before we get into it, thank you for watching. But with that out the way, man, let's get going. Uh, yeah, let's just get started. I got fucking I don't know why recently I've just started having the notepad here for every video, and I got like how many pages is this? This is at least like 14 pages front and back. Let's see, yeah, it's like 13, 14 pages. And yeah, let's get into my essay about the draft. I'm gonna go through every single team, man. That's like 2 rounds. Yeah, I did. Okay. Let's go, man. First overall pick, it's gonna be Caleb. Um, I don't know if it's the eighth or ninth mock draft I did, but this is like 4 or 5 drafts in a row. I feel like where I've had the Bears taking Caleb. It's just as the draft gets closer, I feel like it's becoming more and more clear the Bears want to move on from Justin Fields, and Caleb is for sure that guy at number one. Let me kind of pitch my philosophy here. I prefer if I was a Bears fan, which I'm not, I would want them to keep Justin Fields. I think if we're looking at this as a one or the other type of thing, on one hand, you would have them keeping Justin Fields and trading this pick most likely and getting 3 first round picks in return from the Raiders, the Falcons, the Saints, the Broncos, something like that, right? And I feel like that would be the best situation. You'd still have 2 picks, probably in the top 15 or 20 of this draft. You'd still get your number one receiver, well, alongside DJ Moore. And it would just set you up better for the future, in my opinion, than what they are going to do, which would be drafting Caleb, drafting a receiver probably at number 9, and trading Fields for maybe a second round pick if you're lucky. And I think the value is much higher for the Bears in the keeping Fields, trading the pick scenario. That's my opinion. I understand why they're keeping Caleb. You get a complete reset on the rookie contract, all of that. He's making very little money for the first 5 years. You have a chance to build a championship team around. I understand all that, but I just think keeping Fields would be the better option. That's my opinion. But anyway, Bears take Fields at number one. Next up, we got the Commanders. I think this is going to be Drake May. I think the Commanders up to this point may have been the worst run organization in the league, like the last several years. I just really don't understand um, many of their decisions. And their team right now is in disarray. It's in shambles. They really have no positives going for them. Um, New coach though, Dan Quinn, and you need a quarterback because I do not think Sam Howell is in their future. Some fans do think that he should stick around, but I don't see it. I think he led the league in picks, even though he got benched at several points. Um, and Drake May is an A plus prospect. I've seen some unnecessary Drake May hate as of late. I don't know why. He would be the number one overall pick in most draft classes. He has an amazing mix of youth, arm talent, mobility. He checks all the boxes for me. He has real no flaws or big red flags as a prospect. I don't think he's going to do well in Washington, though, in DC. I just think they're so far away from being a good team that whatever quarterback would go there would be kind of fucked, to be honest with you. So just because I think it's the right pick for the Commanders to make, I do not think it's going to work out. and that might not even be Drake May's fault. We see it all the time. About half of the teams that draft a QB in these top 10, 15 picks end up failing them. So it is what it is. Sad thing, but I do think Drake May will go number 2 to the Commanders. Next, I've got the Patriots, and I do have them taking Jaden Daniels. I do think the top 3 picks will be all quarterbacks. Um, I think the bridge is burned with Mac Jones. If you don't think the bridge is burned, then I guess that would lead you to make a different selection here. But I just I don't know why Mac Jones would want to play for New England anymore, and I don't know why they would want to keep him after back-to-back years of just not very good performances, or has he only been in the league 2 years? I think it's back-to-back years of him just not looking too well. That's mainly because the Patriots have given him nothing, and I mean nothing in terms of coaching or just talent at wide receiver. So that's not Mac Jones' fault, but he has also not played well himself. He's made a lot of, you know, avoidable mistakes. With that being said, I do think Jaden Daniels is worthy of a top 3 pick just because I don't think he's on the same level as Drake May and Caleb. I do think desperation warrants him being selected at number 3 for the Patriots. Um, it just I don't think the other options are as good as the potential of Jaden Daniels possibly turning into the next RG3, something like that, and speeding up the Patriots rebuild. Because if you draft more, if you keep Mac Jones, if you trade the pick, I just don't know what you do. This solves their quarterback question, and if you have the opportunity to do that, I think that's what you should do at number 3. Next up, we got the Cardinals, possibly the easiest pick in the whole draft. Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the best overall player in the draft. He would have been a 1,000-yard receiver if he came out last year, but he was not able to because he was too young. Um, and the Cardinals need a number 1 receiver, but they already have a lot of good young options. Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson. I don't know what this means for Hollywood Brown. Maybe he stays, maybe he leaves. I'm not sure. Still got Rondell Moore. You got Trey McBride. So they actually could have a very explosive offense next season with this pick. So it makes the most sense. It's easy. Just, nothing to really break down here. Next, we get the Chargers, and they have so many options with this pick. You could draft tackle. You could take the first defensive player off the board. You could trade this pick and possibly get 2 first-rounders in return. I think they should draft Brock Bowers, though. I think new head coach John Harbaugh understands how good of a player Brock Bowers is. He played against him 2 years ago in the college football playoff. And Brock Bowers, I know I said it about Marv. Brock Bowers might be the best player in the whole draft. I think he is the best tight end in college football history. I think he's the best tight end prospect I've ever seen, even better than Kyle Pitts, because he provides more in the run blocking game than Pitts. Pitts is not really a blocker whatsoever. I think Brock Bowers could play every single down. And I think with Keenan Allen, he's not falling off. He had damn near a career year last season, but he's getting up there in age. Mike Williams probably not looking to bring him back. The Chargers need help in the receiving category. A lot of people think that they could go receiver here, but I think Brock Bowers solves the receiving need while giving Justin Herbert the best safety blanket, arguably, in the whole draft. And you see how well that's worked out for Mahomes in your own division. And I don't know. I just think it's the best fit for Brock Bowers, and I think it's the best possible pick for the Chargers. Next, I've got the Giants, and here's where I struggle because in this draft, I'm trying to be more so realistic than what I think or what I would do if I was in these team spots. Like if I was in the Giants spot right here, I would take Joe Alt and I would not think twice about it. But in every mock draft I'm seeing lately, and from what the own fans themselves say they want, well, they want a quarterback here. But if Daniels is not available at number 6, then they want a receiver, either Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze. I don't understand how you could have arguably the worst offensive line in football and not want to address it with your top 6 pick. So I don't know. It's not the decision I would make, but I'm going to have the Giants taking Malik Neighbors here at 6. This is not to say that Malik Neighbors isn't a great player. I think he is worthy of a top 10 pick. He's incredibly explosive, stretches the field, highlight plays, gets in the end zone, amazing run after the catch. He's a great player. And I think the Giants have a needed receiver. I think Jalen Hyatt showed a lot of flashes, but they just didn't know how to use him for some reason, even though they drafted him with a third round pick. I think Malik Neighbors adds another layer to their offense, which they desperately need. He's probably a wide receiver one, even though I think he could play in the slot mainly. Um, and yeah, it'll help the offense. Don't get me wrong, but I just think tackle would make more of a difference. I think getting your franchise right tackle would make more of a difference than getting possibly your franchise wide receiver. So that's my opinion on it. But you know, like I said, this seems like the most realistic case at this point in time. Moving on to the Titans, easy, no brainer. This is the dream scenario for the Titans. They've been trying to solve their tackle problem for years. Taylor Lewan retired. They missed on a first round pick a couple years ago. I forget his name. That's how quickly he was literally a bust after like 2 months. It was the guy who like retired after his rookie season, like dropped an album that sold like 20 units or whatever. I forget his. I think it's like Isaiah Wilson or something like that. So they missed on that a couple years ago. So they desperately need an offensive tackle. They've had one of the worst offensive tackles in the league for a couple years in a row now. And like I said, getting the best tackle prospect in the draft all the way down at 7, that's a great look. That's a great move for the Titans, and it's a no-brainer. Next, we got the Falcons here. I really don't know what they're going to do with this pick. They have so many odd. Like I could pitch you. Let me pitch you all the scenarios I could honestly see. I could see Michael Penix or JJ McCarthy, because if they don't trade, I think I am going to operate under the assumption that they trade for Justin Fields. But if they don't, I could easily see Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy. I could see them drafting Rome Odunze here, even though I don't really think that makes a lot of sense. I could see them drafting a edge rusher here. So they have a lot of options. They could trade this pick. They could trade down. So I am going to go with, in my opinion, the best defensive player in the whole draft, and that would be Dallas Turner out of Alabama. I think he has the highest potential. I think he is the most physically gifted D lineman out of anybody. And they need a premier pass rusher, even though, Arnold Ebiketie has been showing strides, and I think he'll be good. Getting Dallas Turner opposite of him would wreak havoc on offensive lines. So, like I said, I think they could be the perfect fit for Justin Fields in a trade scenario. But, considering what they did last year in terms of drafting a running back, when running back was the only position on their entire team that they did not need, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, so they have a track record of just doing the unexpected. Like, I didn't think they'd draft Drake London 2 years ago over all their options. So I don't know what they're going to do, but Dallas Turner, I think, makes the most sense. Bears at 9, pretty easy. Rome Odunze, best player on the board. He's a clear cut NFL wide receiver one. He already plays like an NFL boundary receiver. He goes up, he wins jump balls, he gets separation downfield, he makes tough contested catches, great body control, great weapon in the end zone. I think most people kind of understand how good Rome Odunze is, and I love the fact that as we get closer to draft day, he keeps just shooting up and up draft boards. Like he could go all the way at number 5, and I wouldn't be shocked. So I love that because I like Rome Odunze. The Bears, they need a perimeter receiver. DJ Moore, I think, does his best work in the slot. That's not to diminish him. I just think that's where he provides the most value on the offense. Obviously, he could still play outside, but I think Odunze is more of an exclusively outside, big body wide receiver one that is meant to take up the top priority of the defense's attention, because at any moment he could either break free downfield, or if you have a smaller guy on him, just snag over him and score a touchdown. So I think that provides a great weapon to Caleb Williams in this scenario. And the Bears wide receiver core outside DJ Moore last season was just not good enough. So I do think it's going to be a receiver at this pick. And I think Odunze is just a great fit. So, and he's the last receiver left out of the big 3, being Neighbors, Harrison, and himself. I think all 3 of those guys will go in the top 10. I'm just not sure where as of right now. Next up, we got the Jets. I said the Titans getting Joe Alt was a dream scenario. The Jets getting Olu Fashanu was also a dream scenario here. I'm not hearing anybody out. In this situation, with Odunze and Neighbors off the board, there's literally nothing the Jets could do besides take a tackle right here. You could maybe sell me on somebody besides Olu Fashanu. Like you could maybe sell me on like a JC Latham or a Talisi Fuaga. But yeah, I mean, I think Fashanu is still the second best guy. I don't really trust all of this postseason movement. Like I thought after the regular season, Olu Fashanu was the clear number two to Joe Alt, and I still feel that way. You know, he has not shown me anything to not think he's a top 10 pick still. So I think him to the Jets at 10 makes the most sense, and they desperately need a tackle. Next up, we got the Vikings at 11. I'm going to operate under the assumption that they re-signed Kirk Cousins. So in my head, for this mock draft, I kind of already have most of free agency figured out, or for the sake of this video, I've kind of already assigned players to certain places. Like I assigned Justin Fields to the Falcons. I'm assuming the Vikings bring back Kirk Cousins, things like that. So if they bring back Kirk Cousins, no need to draft a McCarthy or a Penix or a Bo Nix. So then that leaves two options, in my opinion: cornerback or pass rush. I have mainly been giving them cornerback up to this point, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to go with a guy who I think is a surefire top 20 pick now after kind of quelling some of his injury concerns, and that's Leatu Latu. By all accounts, no issues medically, which was his biggest red flag, if you want to call it that, coming into the draft. So with that out the way, I think he could definitely go at 11 to the Vikings. You know, pair him alongside a guy like Daniil Hunter, and you have a very dangerous combination there. You know, Brian Flores would be doing jumping jacks if they, you know, pulled off a move and got Liatu Latu. So I like that pick. Makes their D line incredibly scary. So good job on the Vikings there. Next up, we got the Broncos. Oh man, Sean Payton has run the Broncos into the ground in like less than a year at this point. Um, he cut fucking Justin Simmons like a day ago, cut Russell Wilson, took on the most dead cap ever, ruined his relationship with their franchise quarterback on day one, even though Russ did not play that bad last season, especially considering the fact that he had little to no help at receiver, little to no help at O line, not a good group of running backs. Like it's just Russell Wilson, in Sean Payton's mind, anything short of Russ being MVP was just a disappointment and an insult personally to Sean Payton, I guess. I think Sean Payton is ruining his legacy as a head coach in Denver, but that's another topic. But similar to that topic, I think he is going to continue to ruin his legacy by screwing up this pick. Um, they have no plan at quarterback unless you plan to roll on with Jarrett Stidham. I don't think they're getting a guy like Kirk Cousins, which I think would be Sean Payton's dream right now. So that means you have to draft somebody. Who would you draft? Well, I think the best options for the Broncos would be Michael Penix or Bo Nix. But Sean Payton is clearly an idiot. So I think that means they'll draft JJ McCarthy. I keep hearing JJ McCarthy going in the top 10, going in the top 5. So I have to assume that he'd go in the top 15, right? But let me allow me to compare this to the Will Levis situation from last season. Last season, I said throughout the draft process that Will Levis was not good enough to go in the first round and that he would not go in the first round. I was right about that. That was one of my best takes ever because he did not go in the first round, and all of the hype pre-draft about Will Levis was complete false. It was BS. It was horseshit. I think it was fucking started by his agent or something because there's no way that out of nowhere postseason this guy who was viewed as a second or third round guy just jumps into top 5 talk. That's what I'm seeing with JJ McCarthy. It's the same thing. I don't know if they have the same agent or something like that, but it's fabricated. It's not real. I don't see first round talent with JJ McCarthy. I don't even think he should have declared this. I don't think he's ready. He's obviously, but like if he's going to go in the top 5 or top 10, you have to play him right away. So I don't understand. It makes no sense to me. The logic is not there. And I don't think McCarthy's going to go as high as people are saying he will. With that being said, like I said, I think the Broncos are desperate, and desperation calls for very not good measures. And I think that's what this pick would be. I think it would be the nail in the coffin of the Broncos having any hope moving forward. And that's not to say that McCarthy is a bad quarterback or anything like that. I mean, I just don't think he's that good. So obviously, I'm going to come across as a hater or something like that. But I think it's kind of unfair to him in a way because I think he should be a guy that goes in the middle of the second round, sits for a year or two, and then gets his shot. But he's going to be thrust forward into the top 15 and have to start year one. I think he'd look awful. I think he would look terrible next year if he went to the Broncos and had to play year one. So that's just my opinion. Um, that would be a rough pick, man, for the Broncos. Next up, we got the Raiders, and with this pick, I have them drafting Michael Penix. Um, Pretty simple, really. I just think that the Raiders are a very friendly situation for a young quarterback to play. Complete opposite of the Broncos. You already have Devontae Adams. You have Jacoby Myers. You have Michael Mayer. You have a player first coach. You have a defense that played well last season. You possibly would have Josh Jacobs. We'll get to that later. But I think Michael Penix would come in and just play his ass off in Vegas. He similar to Leatu Latu, he cleared up a lot of his medical concerns at the combine. So that's kind of the uh, the last check of his list for me of proving he's a top 15 to top 20 pick. I just don't know why some people, it's usually the same people who are downing Penix and saying he's not good enough for the top 10 and top 15, or the same guy is saying that McCarthy just blows them away and he's a surefire top 10 pick. Those are just complete, like, those, that makes no sense to me. And I know I'm not crazy, right? So I'm not seeing what they're seeing. I think Penix would run circles around McCarthy. And if this happens and they're in the same division, he would dominate McCarthy, in my opinion. So yeah, this would be pretty funny if this did happen. Moving on, Saints at 14. I'm gonna have them taking Talisi Fuaga here out of Oregon State. I think they've been trying to get a tackle for a couple years now. Trevor Penning is a bust. That first round pick was a waste. Did not work out. Ryan Ramczyk, I think he had like a health scare recently. I don't know what's up with him if he's still even playing or not, but they need tackle, and Fuaga I think fills that need, you know, very well. He's nasty. I like his play style, a mauler in the run game. I've said that 10 times about him already. But I think this would also help open up more holes for, Alvin Kamara. Can we get that guy more involved in the offense next season? You drafted Kendre Miller, and, protecting Derek Carr would probably help the Saints. They don't like Derek Carr for some reason, the fans at least. I don't know why. Michael Thomas didn't play any games. Alvin Kamara missed the first 4 games, and his offensive line wasn't good. And also, he had one of the worst OCs in the league. So I think he was set up for failure. And getting rid of the OC helps. And I think drafting Fuaga should also help with multiple issues on this offense. So, Saints doing that. I like that pick for them. Next up, Colts. I have been giving them Cooper DeJean consistently like this entire time, but now that I have not had a corner go at this point, he is not the best corner available in my opinion. I think Nate Wiggins, from the start of this process to now, has been the most consistent guy who's only helped his stock by running the fastest 40 for any cornerback. Yeah, I love his size, obviously his speed. Everybody knows that at this point. He just looks like a pro. Looks like a pro. And there is a top 4 group at cornerback, in my opinion, that will all go in the top 20 to 25. I'm not sure where, but Nate Wiggins is the top of that class, in my opinion. I'm kind of scared to make any big predictions about the cornerback class because I was just so wrong last. I wasn't necessarily wrong. I felt so differently than how NFL teams felt. So I'm not going to try and predict, any big things about this cornerback class yet. But I do think Nate Wiggins will be the first one off the board. I feel pretty confident in that. And for the Colts, I mean, last season or last draft was all about athletic freaks. Um, and Nate Wiggins certainly fits that mold. Next up for my Seahawks, though, I am going to go Cooper DeJean. I don't think I've mocked him to my Seahawks yet, but I do think that due to our recent moves, and what I mean by that is we released both of our starting safeties on the same day, which leaves 2 gaping holes in our secondary. And Cooper DeJean is a guy who I truly believe sneaky athletic, first one in, last guy out. Make all the white jokes you want. I think he could play any position on the secondary and play it well. He's that versatile. He's that athletic, and he's that's why a lot of people consider him to be the number one corner on the board, not just the number one, just the number one DB in general because of that versatility. Um, and he would give the Seahawks so many options. Like I'm assuming we sign a safety in free agency, but like you could have Cooper Jean play free safety and have whoever we sign and Tariq and Witherspoon on the outside, or Tariq and like Mike Jackson on the outside, Spoon in the slot. You could have DeJean in the slot, Spoon Tariq outside. You could have Tariq and DeJean outside, Spoon in the slot. You could have somebody who knows in the slot. You could have Spoon and DeJean on the outside, Tariq playing free safety at times. It just gives the Seahawks so many options, and him himself being a good player. I'd like the pick. First year head coach Mike McDonald. I'm pretty sure this pick will be defense, and they have some holes in the secondary they need to address. So, as a Seahawks fan, I would be very happy with this pick. Jaguars at 17. This one is kind of interesting because I'm going to go with the guy who I have yet to even mock in the first round at all, and I'm going to have him all the way up here at 17, and that's Jackson Powers Johnson. Honestly, I have no idea where this guy came from. It was I had not seen this guy. Maybe I had seen him like once in like a late 20s or something like that. But I had not seen this guy in the first round of mock draft like at all. And then out of nowhere, I see him going to my Seahawks at 16, even higher than that, like a lock for the top 20 pick. So that took me by surprise, and that's a little suspicious, you know. But if he is clearly the best interior offensive line prospect, and these guys, the good thing about them is that they usually have pretty high floors. And if that's the case, then it makes a lot of sense. The Jaguars at 17. I've been looking for an interior offensive line prospect for them. I've had them going Fuaga in the past to play guard. Same thing with Fatanu, Graham Barton, guys like that, because they did not do a great job of protecting Lawrence last year. And I think Powers Johnson would help a lot. A day one starter, plug and play, and yeah, it's a good fit out of nowhere. From the top rope, here comes Jackson Powers Johnson, and yeah, I mean, if you trust that postseason jump out of nowhere, then I don't mind this pick at all. Moving on, Bengals here. Protecting Joe Burrow has got to be the top priority. And with that being said, I'm going to give them J.C. Latham out of Alabama to come in and play his immediate position of right tackle, day one starter. And I would really like the idea of giving them a receiver here. That just doesn't make sense to me. You franchise tag T Higgins. You probably let Tyler Boyd walk in free agency, but you got guys like Andre Yosivas who played good in stretches last season. You drafted Charlie Jones last season, like the fourth or fifth round. Like you have a lot of options at receiver. I don't think this has to be a receiver at all. Even if you don't think T Higgins is going to get a long term deal or whatever. But I do think protecting Joe Burrow clearly, 2 out of his first 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, he cannot stay healthy because he gets hit too much. So I think tackle has got to be their top priority. And if it is, J.C. Latham, best tackle available, pretty clearly. So no brainer. Next up, Rams at 19. They have to upgrade at cornerback. The group last year was not good enough. Akello Witherspoon was their best guy. So, no disrespect. Yeah, he actually played solid, but that's not enough. So if we look at the cornerbacks available, it's a pretty good variety. You got some good options here. I'm going to go with I'm gonna go with Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. Probably the guy that's done the most work for his name post draft. Like in terms of like he was going first round, like he was going like 28, 29, 30, something like that. But he is consistent top 20, mainly even consistent top 15. I might be even underrating him a little bit here. He might be the first cornerback off the board because he tested so well at the combine and he had a great senior bowl to go along with that. So if you take both those things into consideration, he may very easily be the, cornerback one for a lot of teams. I'm not completely sold yet. But the Rams, do have a hole at cornerback, in my opinion, and he is a good player. I have no problem with him going in the top 20. So, match made in heaven, possibly. And yeah, I like the pick. Moving on, Steelers here. You got a couple options. They just cut Patrick Peterson today. So, does that leave a hole at cornerback? I think so. Well, you drafted Joey Porter last season. So maybe you don't, double dip at cornerback. Maybe you do. I'm not sure. I think that the offense needs more help than the defense does. They're recovering from years of Matt Canada, and what I think would help with that is getting a offensive tackle to help protect whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Russell Wilson or Kenny Pickett or whoever, and that would be Amarius Mims. Teaming him up with his college teammate Broderick Jones to be your pair at tackle, and you know, athletic freak is Amarius Mims. Um, Size and speed combination. Obviously, he has the power to him, and I'm not saying he'll be a stud day one because neither was Broderick Jones, but this sets you up so well to just not worry about your tackles. Like, not many teams can say that. And if it works out, then we're talking about the Steelers having one of the best offensive lines in the league, which obviously would work wonders for your entire offense as a trickle down effect. So the upside for the Steelers there is too great to pass up on, in my opinion. 21, we got the Dolphins. Not really that many options. I mean, I know they released Xavier Howard, but they drafted Cam Smith at corner last year. So I think he's going to step in immediately. I don't really think corner is too big of a need at this point. Um, I'd go offensive line. I think that protecting Tua has got to be their top priority. He had a great season, and offensive line depth never hurts. And Graham Barton, from what I've heard, is capable of playing every position on the offensive line. How can you pass up on that if you're the Dolphins? If you need tackle, well, not even tackle, if you just need offensive line depth, he could fill in anywhere. He could start at right tackle or right guard probably day one. Like, it, like you don't got to overthink this pick if you're the Dolphins, in my opinion. Fits your needs, provides versatility, provides depth. Just make it happen. Next up, Eagles 22. I've been going corner a lot for them, and they just released Anthony Maddox. Hopefully, or at least fucking Josh Jobe soon. But they got two young prospects last season in Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks. I think Ringo looked better than Ricks, but I hope to see both of them getting more playing time next season. So I don't think they have to draft corner here. I would much rather prefer them drafting a guy like Troy Fatanu out of Washington. I know Kelsey just retired. He doesn't really feel that need. I think Cam Jurgens steps in there and as the immediate replacement. But I do think they have to start looking at a long term replacement for Lane Johnson. And Fatanu could step in day one and play right guard, or if there's an injury, play right tackle. And he's just a good young player to have in there in the eventual case that Lane Johnson is not there. And I think Eagles fans, if you ask them, their top concern would probably be that offensive line to get it back to where it was in 2022, hopefully. Moving on to the Texans here. I'm going to give him Byron Murphy. Honestly, I don't really look at Byron Murphy and see this top 15, top 20 guy. That's just me personally. It's so, I feel like I'm always wrong though about these tackles. I feel like they're better than what I expect them to be. So maybe that's just me in thinking that tackle is not really worth taking that highly unless it's like a generational guy. But, defensive minded head coach D'Amico Ryans, you addressed the edge last season with Will Anderson. Um, and that middle is unattended to right now in Houston. So I think it's a good pick. I think it fills an immediate need. I think he plays day one, and I think he's still a good player. I think he should go in the first round. I'm just not sure where, but the Texans I think makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people do think that Byron Murphy is the best interior defensive lineman. So if that's the case, then at 23, it's not bad value at all. Moving on, Cowboys. I know that Tyron Smith is probably not going to be returning, But if we take a look at the tackles real quick, I just don't really see the guy worth taking at 24. Like, I don't really think any of these guys are really first rounders, in my opinion. And I certainly don't think any of them start day one for the Cowboys. So that's kind of off the table, in my opinion. Looking elsewhere, though, I really don't think defense. Yeah, maybe linebacker, but I don't think this early. So I don't really think I could make a case for anybody on defense. I think wide receiver is really the pick here. And if that's the case, Brian Thomas Jr. Um, probably would even be considered a steal at 24. He has great size, great speed. 6'3", 4'3", 340, if I'm not mistaken. Um, a big play machine, always open downfield. Um, great body control in the end zone, contested catches, and he provides another layer to the offense. Um, they're kind of stuck with the Cowboys. You can't move on from Dak. You don't love what you have at running back. The offensive line's kind of falling apart. So you don't really have many ways to go. And you got multiple young guys that have to get paid massive amounts of money. So you kind of really can only improve during the draft. Um, and I don't think last year's draft was very good for me. I mean, your top two picks were a rotational defensive tackle and your third string tight end. So yeah, I mean, this has to be a big pick for the Cowboys. I'm talking like big impact day one. That's what I think Brian Thomas would be. I think he'd step in right away and have a good season. I think he'd have at least 800 to 900 yards, maybe even 1,000, and 7 or 8 touchdowns. So I think I could sell Jerry Jones on that proposition if I was in their draft room. Next up, we got the Packers. My voice is already going kind of hoarse. We're not even halfway through. Good lord. All right, Packers here. I really don't think they have that many needs. Like, they've drafted defensive line in the first round, back-to-back drafts. Um, you really couldn't convince me of any skill position. I don't know why running back is listed at their top need. Doesn't really make sense to me. I think secondary is the only thing that comes to mind. They didn't release. They traded Rasul Douglas. Jair Alexander seems to be always either hurt or just some type of controversy around him. And Eric Stokes, I mean, it's okay. Do you guys think Eric Stokes is good enough to not draft another cornerback? So, look, I think corner's the move here. Terry and Arnold, like the way he played, he had possibly just the best season of any cornerback, like in the class. Like in terms of actual on field play last season, he's probably number one. So I like that about him. 25, again, really good value. There's a lot of good cornerbacks that could go in the first round, and Terry and Arnold in this particular class, just with this particular mock draft, kind of just fell a little bit for me. So it's great value for the Packers at 25. And yeah, I think he starts day one. So Packers there would be very, very happy with Arnold at 25. This one's kind of easy. Only positions I could really make a case for the Buccaneers are corner and edge rusher. And when you see Jared Verse just sitting right there, I say this every time. I don't know how Jared Verse keeps falling for me. I just I just think there's only two guys I would confidently say are ahead of him, which are Leatu Latu and Dallas Turner. And there's just not many spots that I consider edge rusher in the top 20. So it kind of just has to end up being around here for Jared Verse and 26 for the Buccaneers. It's a no-brainer. Shaquille Barrett is gone, I think, so that opens up another hole on their D line. And Yada Diaby, Kalijah Cansey, Jared Verse, you got something really cooking there at that point. So I like that pick if I'm a Bucks fan. For the Cardinals here, look, they had the worst group of cornerbacks in the league last season, and that's not an exaggeration. They were awful. And I know they drafted Garrett Williams like the second round last year, who I believe was hurt a lot, so I don't think he saw the field much. But if you think second round pick Garrett Williams is going to come in and solve all their problems at cornerback, you got another thing coming. They need help at corner, and Kool-Aid is the last guy who I really have a first round grade on, and he might even be the best corner. I mean, his stock has kind of plummeted because I think he's getting like surgery for something. I'm not sure how serious it is, but I'm seeing him kind of like fall out the first round entirely. I don't see a world where that happens. He is still immensely talented. might be the most just physically gifted corner in the whole class. Just technically sound, a great prospect. It's a steal for the Cardinals to get him at 27 here. So yeah, to get possibly the best wide receiver and the best corner in the same round of the draft is, yeah, Cardinals fans should be extremely happy with that. And as a Seahawks fan, I would take a massive gulp if that were to happen. Bills at 28 here. They made a lot of cuts on defense recently. Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer amongst them, so could make a very good case for secondary. I think receiver is still the top priority. I don't think Gabe Davis is in the future. Diggs' relationship with Allen looks shakier and shakier every offseason. Um, Khalil Shakir looked good, so I think you keep Khalil Shakir in the slot. You still got Diggs moving all around next season, and you need a big body on the outside, a deep threat. And we're going to take a guy whose stock has plummeted as of late, and that is Keon Coleman. There were points where Keon Coleman was a top 5 projected pick. Like, I understand that was like months ago, but still, man, he didn't test super well. He didn't run very fast. But look, all that's irrelevant if you can just close your eyes and imagine Josh Allen throwing up prayer balls to Keon Coleman downfield, and he easily comes down with them and just mosses every DB in the NFL, which I think could happen. Like, I'm not saying that this guy's fallen so far that Josh Allen could not just use him as a ridiculous deep threat. So I like it. But, you know, Keon Coleman, the question is, do teams still value him? Do they still see him as a first round pick? So that's the only thing holding this pick back for me. But besides that, I love the fit. Lions at 29. This just has to be cornerback because they were so bad in the playoffs at corner. Like, they couldn't stop anybody. Kindle Vildor sucks. Respectfully. I usually don't, talk too poorly of guys, but man, he got cooked the entire playoffs. He's not good enough to play in the NFL, and for him to be a starting boundary corner is pretty concerning. So it has to be corner here. The only guy who I really think could still go in the first round is Ennis Rakestraw. So that's the pick we're gonna make here. I don't really think it's a reach. It's simply just corner is easily their biggest need, and he's the best one available. So if you put it like that, I don't think it's too bad. So, and look, he just cannot be worse than Kindle Vildor. Respectfully. Ravens at 30. If there were better corners available, I'd probably say corner, but since there are not, I think receiver is the move. The question is who, and this is where I got a little I think it's a little interesting. I have not had Lad McConkey go in the first round yet. I'm gonna send him to the Ravens here because he has a connection with Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken. Obviously coached McConkey at Georgia, and I think I think that's a good fit. Honestly, I think he knows how to use McConkey well. I think it provides Lamar a very reliable weapon, and he's just a really good player. Like, it's a very stacked receiver class. That's the only thing holding him back here. He'd be compared to guys like Worthy and A.D. Mitchell and Troy Franklin and stuff, but compared to them, I think he holds up. The Ravens clearly were not good enough offensively against the Chiefs, and I think they still need help at receiver, and McConkey certainly provides that. The Niners is tough. It is tough because I think it has to be tackle because corner, like I said, not really shining out right now. But who the hell is it at tackle? I think from what I've heard, Tyler Guyton is the most raw. Jordan Morgan is going to be a guard, I think. And look, Kingsley Suamataia, I have seen be mock the Niners most frequently. So just based off that, that's what I'm going to go with. I'm in a goddamn cough drop right here. 1 second. But yeah, if I'm just fixed on the fact that Niners are taking a tackle, then this is the best. This is the best I got for you, to be honest. Chiefs at 32. I'm not even going to waste much time with this. I'm not hearing anybody out that says anything but receiver, and it's going to be Xavier Worthy. Um, Look, this is not a reaction to his combine. I've had this guy as a first round receiver damn near the whole way through. Um, I think I've even had him going to the Chiefs before. But now knowing he had the fastest combine ever, you kind of sweat a little bit because if he goes to the fucking Chiefs, is this Tyreek 2.0? I'm not sure. They sure know how to use a small, shifty, fast receiver. Uh, but look, they've been throwing. Mahomes has been throwing deep balls to Julian Watson and MVS for too long. Get him an actual deep throw that has real, off the wall speed, and watch what happens. That's all the case. I think. I don't think anybody really needs to be sold on why this would be a good pick. Next up, Panthers. This also has to be receiver. Possibly, no, not possibly. The worst receiver core in the league last season. They did Bryce Young no favors. He had nothing to work with offensively. So you have to give him something here. The question is who. Um, I honestly would like McConkey or Worthy more than these options right here, but I do think it would have to be between AD Mitchell and Troy Franklin. So I think AD Mitchell, they both do mainly the same things. I just think AD Mitchell does it slightly better, especially in the red zone. Problem is, can the Panthers get to the red zone? I'm not sure, but it's kind of tough, man, because he's not really. I would want more of a slot receiver that gets separation, between 5, 10 to 15 yards of the line of scrimmage. AD Mitchell was kind of a guy that wins deep more often. I don't even know if Bryce Young's going to have enough time to throw deep balls next season. So I just and with AD Mitchell, like he's not a wide receiver one type of guy. Like if he came into Carolina, he'd be the best receiver they got, and he'd be getting guarded by opposing teams number one. So that's just not a great situation for him personally. So I don't even love this pick, but it's just the best receiver available in my opinion because they desperately need receiver, and AD Mitchell kind of gets screwed as a result. Next up, we got the Patriots. I know I said the Panthers are the worst. The Patriots actually were the worst receiving core, like statistically. They had the worst separation in the league, I think. Devontae Parker sucks. Tyquan Thornton's hurt. Demario Douglas, like a rookie 6th round pick, was their best receiver statistically. So, pour one out for poor old Mac Jones last season and Bailey Zappi. Um, who is the guy here? I mean, I guess it has to be Troy Franklin. At least provide some type of explosivity to this team. You got Jaden Daniels, give him a deep threat. Troy Franklin, big body, kind of mini Romo Dunze. If I had to, same played against each other twice. Troy Franklin, like he does a lot of things I like. 40 time was not too impressive, I believe, but he wins downfield. Like he's always open downfield. He makes big plays, boundary guy, big body, wide catch radius, all that good stuff. So, I mean, look, he's an automatic upgrade. I mean, you can't give me a receiver on the Patriots that even holds the fucking candle to Troy Franklin. So, just based off that, I can't criticize this pick. Next up, we got the Cardinals. Man, the Cardinals just find themselves every single time just getting their pick of the best guy at every position, right? They had the pick of the best receiver, the best offensive lineman, the best defensive player at number 4. At number 27, they just had their pick of, well, not merely the pick, but Kool-Aid was still on the board in this draft, so he has the potential to be the best corner in the class. And now you got Johnny Newton right here, who I'm going to draft for them, who potentially, in my opinion, still is the best interior defensive line prospect. So this would be an A+ for the Cardinals if this were to actually happen at this point. Um, and obviously, he fills that hole in their interior of their defensive line. Jonathan Gannon, I'm sure, prioritizes that very highly coming from Philadelphia with Fletcher Cox and guys like that. So, I mean, yeah, Cardinals ace this draft to this point at pick 35. Next, we got the Commanders. And at some point, they just have to desperately address that horrendous offensive line. So I'm just going to give them Jordan Morgan here, who, like I said, I think is going to project into a guard. But look, he can't be worse, man. He really just can't be worse. I don't care who they have. They sucked last year. So get Jordan Morgan in there, have him play right guard or left guard. I don't really care. and hopefully it'll be better. Chiefs, not Chiefs, sorry, Chargers here. Um, they in the last 2 years they lost Drew Tranquill and Eric Kendricks, so that does leave a hole at linebacker. I'm not going to go Peyton Wilson just because he tested well at the combine. I'm going to go with who I believe is the best linebacker in this class. That's Edgerrin Cooper out of A&M. I just think I watched multiple A&M games and he stuck out every single time, whether it was getting in the backfield, massive sack, using his pass rush moves, in coverage. He is so well rounded, so athletic. He makes plays in all facets of his linebacker duties, and I don't. I just like him as a prospect. I think he's the best linebacker. Chargers have a hole at linebacker. Let's not overthink this. Titans at 38. I am going to give them a wide receiver here. I think their only two needs are wide receiver and offensive tackle. Well, they have more needs than that, but two needs that I would consider drafting. So take a look around. I think Jalen Polk is the best receiver available here. Um, Amazing deep threat, massive separation downfield. And I think he would just fit well with Will Levis. They have no plans in the future at receiver. Traylon Burke is a bust up to this point. Hopkins obviously is not in their long term plans. So get Jalen Polk in there, get him some chemistry with Will Levis, and hopefully moving forward they have some type of just option at receiver. Um, he's the most explosive receiver on the board as well. Giants at 39. I thought about this one. I'm gonna give him Bo Nix. I just think they don't want Daniel Jones. I've heard reports they have buyer's remorse. They want to move on. They're looking to move on. And Bo Nix is sitting right there. Look, I think Bo Nix is a very good player. He could even be as high as number 4. I have not made my quarterback rankings yet, but he's without a doubt better than McCarthy, and he might even be better than Penix. I'm going back and forth between them. I'm not sure. Um, but he is a top 20 player in this class, certainly worthy of going in the top 15, in my opinion. Um, Only thing here is that I don't think he'd play day one unless they're just completely done with Daniel Jones. They just bench his ass or something like that. But um, I mean, I still think he'd play year one, whether it's Daniel Jones getting benched or getting hurt or whatever. So I think he would play. So I mean, I like this pick for the Giants. If they're looking to move on from Daniel Jones and they're just done with him, then Bo Nix sitting at 39 is amazing value, and they should jump on that if they could. Commanders here, another pick coming from the Bears, I believe. I still don't know why they traded Chase Young and Montez Sweat, who were both good and young. That was that was an awful move, in my opinion. So you have to somehow find a way to replace that. I'm gonna go Chop Robinson, you know, Pennsylvania, DC, pretty close. Um, the most juice, the most speed coming off the edge. He's a little bit one dimensional right now as a strictly pass rusher, but hey, they need pass rush. Dan Quinn, defensive head coach, Penn State might even see some resemblance to Michael Parsons maybe. So I like that pick for the Commanders. You got to replace the hole that Sweat and Chase Young leaves in that defense. Packers at 41. I still think that secondary is the biggest need here. They have not really found a replacement for Adrian Amos. Darnell Savage, I don't know his long term status with the team. So I think safety, this might be the first spot for a safety off the board, and Tyler Nubin sitting right there. I think Nubin is the best safety in the class. And, you know, just yet again, another easy pick for the Packers. You had Terry and Arnold sitting right there. You have Tyler Nubin sitting right here. So kind of back to back picks where their guy just falls into their lap. Could this be the spot for a running back? I don't love the options at corner right now. Um, I don't even think they necessarily need to draft a corner either. Yeah, I'm gonna give him a running back. The question is who? Who the hell do y'all think is the best running back in this class? I'm not sure. I would have loved to see Jonathan Brooks go back to college. I don't know how to feel about him after that major injury. So I'm really cautious with him. Looking all, there's a lot of good players, man. A lot of good players. I really like I really like this group right here: Vidal, Schrader, Frank Gore Jr. But I'm gonna go Blake Corum. He's the most accomplished. Um, Certainly has the biggest name out of any of these guys, and they just it's hard. He's a good guy. It's hard to hate on Blake Corum, and I do think based off what he's done in college, he should be the first running back taken. And look, Vikings, you know, massive hole at running back. Blake Corum, that's a I mean, that's a pretty good way to fill a need, if you ask me. Falcons here. I'm gonna give him receiver. The question is, do you take another big body type to go along with the trend of, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, guys like that? You could go an Xavier Leggett, a Devontae Walker, Johnny Wilson, or do you want a guy that can work the inside more and provide some more versatility to the offense? That's what I'm going to go. I'm going to go Roman Wilson, back-to-back Michigan guys here. He had a really good Senior Bowl, really good combine. So he's a guy whose stock has risen postseason. And if the Falcons are looking receiver, I would prefer them to go a guy who does something that the existing guys don't already do. And they do have a need of receiver, so I'll acknowledge that much. Raiders at 44. I'm gonna go forward and assume that Josh Jacobs does not return here. So if that's the case, probably need running back. Taking a look back at running back, I'm gonna give them my favorite guy at running back in this class. That's Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving, so explosive, great hands, provides a lot of catching out of the backfield, and not a lot of workload. You compare his amount of touches and stuff like that to a guy like Blake Corum, it's minuscule. So he's going to be fresh coming into the league, and I just think it's a he's like a surefire bet. I'm not going to say surefire, but I think he comes in day one and looks great in Las Vegas. So that's kind of a personal pick there, but I do think Bucky Irving's extremely talented, and I would love to see him go in the top 50. We got the Saints at 45 here. I gave them tackle. I'm going to give them, with this pick, the other position that they've been trying to answer and failing to answer for years, and that is edge rusher. I think they failed multiple first round picks on this position. And last year they drafted the guy out of Notre Dame in like the second round. Forget his name at the moment. Don't even know how well he played. I don't think he played much at all. But I'm gonna give him another edge rusher here. That's gonna be Darius Robinson, a guy who looked really good in the Senior Bowl. And I'm just seeing a lot of hype around his name, talking about top 50, top 40 even, might even sneak into the first round. So I think 45 is good value there. And they've been looking for Cam Jordan's replacement for 5 years. Thankfully, he just keeps balling out. But eventually, he's going to move on. They're going to need help at edge rusher. And Darius Robinson provides that for them. Colts here, 46. I'm just going to stick with the trend. Athletic freaks. Why not go with the guy who ran the fastest 40 time for any interior defensive lineman? And that would be Brandon Fiske. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Out of FSU. Provide DeForest Buckner some help on that interior. And, Nate Wiggins, Brandon Fiske. That's a pretty good haul in one draft. So I like that for the Colts so far. Giants here with another pick that's coming from my Seahawks here. I wish we still had this pick, but who they draft here? At some point, they just have to draft offensive line, right? So just take a look here. Tyler Guyton doesn't make too much sense to me. I'm just gonna give him Zach Frazier. I know they drafted John Michael Schmitz last year. I'm assuming one of either him or Zach Frazier could play guard or something like that. They just need help, man. They just need help. It has to get better. It was so awful last season. You have to draft offensive line within their top 3 picks. You just have to. So Zach Frazier, best guy available. Pretty simple. Jaguars here. They released Darius Williams, which does not make much sense to me. I think he had a career year last season. So I did not think he'd be a cap casualty. But with that being said, you now have a hole at cornerback. So taking a look at the options here, who do you have? TJ Tampa, I'm not sold on. Mikey Sanders still not sure. Kamari Lassiter, I'm gonna go with Lassiter. Pair him up with, was he teammates with Tyson Campbell? Like Tyson Campbell's been in the league for a while now. Maybe they weren't teammates, but if they weren't, they're pretty close to it. Pair of Georgia Bulldogs playing corner. Lassiter, not a first round guy in my opinion, but 48, I like that value for him. Yeah, I mean they just desperately need help, so Lassiter fills that need for him. Bengals here. I've been giving them interior off the defensive line in a lot of these first round mock drafts. So here, I'm gonna try and fill that need for him. I'll give him Chris Jenkins out of Michigan. Only fear here is that this guy is, Mozzie Smith 2.0. Best tackle available at this point. In worst case, the guy he stuffs the run. That's all you can ask him to do. And yeah, pretty boring pick here for the Bengals, but a need's a need. Eagles at 50. We're gonna go a little out of the box here. I think they need to fill their wide receiver 3 issue that they've been having. They really don't know who to throw to if it's not Smith or AJ Brown. So I'm gonna give him Jalen McMillan. He's used to playing that wide receiver 3 role at Washington. Plays amazingly in the slot. That's what they'd be asking him to do in the NFL. And I think it's a match made in heaven. It finally addresses their wide receiver 3 need, gives the offense a little more variety. McMillan, a good route runner, working the intermediate routes, and it's the best option for slot receiver in the whole draft at this point. So I really like that pick for the Eagles. Rams at 51. I'm gonna give him Peyton Wilson here. Tested incredibly well at the combine. A lot of hype because of that. But with this pick, you kind of have the Rams addressing all 3 needs of their defense over the last 2 drafts. Obviously, last season they hit on Byron Young and Kobe Turner on the defensive line. I already gave them Quinyon Mitchell in the secondary, and now we give them a linebacker to pair up with Ernest Jones, and you cover all 3 levels there. Steelers at 52. I'm gonna give him Mikey Sanders still. I really have no clue where he's gonna go. I mean, you could tell me he'd be a 5th round pick, I wouldn't be shocked. You could tell me he'd be picked number 35, and I wouldn't be shocked. So I don't know how NFL teams are gonna look at him as a pure nickel nasty guy. I like how he plays. I like his play style, but I don't know how well teams value a guy who's a nickel. I value them, but he feels the need for the Steelers. You just cut Pat Pete. You're going to have Porter playing outside, preferably. Maybe you hold on to a guy like Levi Wallace. I'm not sure. And you have Sanders still playing that nickel for you. And I think it'd be a good fit. So I would not hate that pick whatsoever. Dolphins here at 53. I'm going to give him Jatavion Sanders. Easily second best tight end in the whole class. Athletic freak. And I think he provides them with a lot downfield. They didn't really, tight end is kind of the only spot for the Dolphins that they haven't really explored yet. And I think Jatavion Sanders gives them a lot of leeway, a lot of things they can do, a lot of new concepts they can run, and something that defense is just another thing they got to worry about with the Dolphins offense. Eagles again back on the board. I'm gonna give them Jeremiah Trotter here. I still think linebacker is something they should look to address. They got what was his name? Old guy from was it I forget his name. They had like an older linebacker this season to come in and play for him. He did not do too well. Moved on from him. You need a younger, more long-term solution there. I think Trotter's that guy. Obviously has the history with his dad. Used to be a Pro Bowler for the Eagles, so I like that connection there. And yeah, good linebacker, fills a need. And when you got that history on top of that, you can't beat that. For the Browns here, I really have no clue. I cannot think of a real need the Browns have. They're a good roster. But should I change this pickup? Right here, I have them. This was the only pick where I really just did not feel good about it because I gave them Xavier Leggett right here. but you drafted Cedric Tillman in the third round last season. You still got Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore. Like, yeah, I don't like that. I'm changing it up here on the fly. I'm gonna give him Chris Braswell out of Alabama. They got Zadarius Smith in there for a little bit last season. I don't know if that worked out for him. Uh, I'd like to just see them add more depth at edge rush. You can never have too much of it. And Braswell, I think, will be a guy that goes in the first 2 rounds. So yeah, I'm gonna change that up on the fly. Next up, we got the Cowboys. At some point, you got to address tackle Tyler Guyton. Like I said, the most raw prospect. But, Oklahoma to the Cowboys, not far away at all. We saw with CeeDee Lamb that transition. But look, I mean, if he has any upside at tackle, you got to explore that for the Cowboys. He's the last one left that I even know anything about at this point. So, 56 of the Cowboys, worth it to take a shot, considering they drafted the fucking fourth string tight end last year in the second round. So, can't be worse than that. Packers are 57. It's tough to find needs for the Packers, man. I really don't know what they take here. So I'm gonna give them a tackle. I'm gonna give them a tackle because of the situation with Bakhtiari. I think his career is basically done here. And right here, I just wrote Yale guy. Let's learn together here about Kieran Omega G. That was off. He graded pretty well against Holy Cross. Oh man. All right, looks like a guard actually. Oh no, sorry, started out as guard and moved to tackle. So graded very well in 2023. So only played 4 games though, which I don't like. Has not given up a sack in the last 2 years. Okay, fuck it. Let's give him the Yale guy. I mean, shit, he's smart. I mean, look, man. Do you really expect me to do research about Kieran Megadaji at this point? Yes, it's pick 50. We're damn near at the third round. Give me a break. Look at the Buccaneers here. I'm gonna go Buccaneers are running back here. It'll be a little interesting here. I like Rashad White, but I'm not sure if he's the kind of that power guy you want going up the middle. So there's a couple options here for that. I'm gonna give him Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. Believe he had the fastest 40 times, so you have that speed there to him. But I also think he is capable of running in between tackles and providing something that I don't think Rashad White is capable of. But I do love them as a potential duo, going back and forth and not just, force feeding Rashad White fucking 400 touches. So I like that for the Buccaneers, giving more variety to their run game. I'm gonna go to Texans, TJ Tampa. I still think they need help at cornerback. Derek Stingley can't do it all by himself. I don't think Steven Nelson and Desmond King are in their long-term plans. So TJ Tampa, I believe he is a very prominent zone corner, is what I've heard from him. Let's take a look at him actually. See if I'm right on that. Okay. He's an outside corner. Okay. Good coverage grade. Yeah, you can see here a much higher grade in zone than in man. So I was right about that. But at here, I think it's a good value. I mean, at pick 59 to get a potential starter, not bad whatsoever. Moving on to the Bills. I mentioned that they made a lot of cuts in their secondary. I do think you got to address that at some point here in the first 2 rounds. So we're going to give them possibly the best safety in the whole class. That's Cam Kitchens. He has a lot of upside, flies around the field, massive ball hawk potential, and I think you just slide in for Jordan Poyer's role immediately, day one. So I like that for the Bills. Lions at 61 here. What would Dan Campbell do? I feel like he'd get a big round guy and stick him right in the middle of the defense here. So what does that mean? I'm gonna give them Devondre Sweat out of Texas. I don't really think too highly of this guy, if I'm being honest with you. I think he's kind of like the Siaki Ika of this class, where it's kind of just all size, nothing else. But, Lions, stick him in the middle of the D line, stuff the run better. I'm sure that's high on Dan Campbell's list this offseason. So, yeah, that's what it is. Then we have the Ravens. Give him Adissa Isaac here. Just again, twitched up, juiced up edge rusher, a lot of speed coming off. And, if you lose Jadeveon Clowney, I do feel like they're going to have some more needs at edge rusher. get a Jabo in there, a Dafa Owe, a Dissa Isaac. I feel like that's a pretty good young rotation of guys at that point, and you could be happy with that if you're Baltimore. Niners here at 63. I'm gonna switch this up. I gave him Kyrie Jackson at first out of Oregon, but with Xavier Leggett on the board, I don't really see how he falls out of the first 2 rounds. So I'm gonna give them Leggett here. And I kind of like the idea of getting them another receiver, not as a Seahawks fan, but Jawan Jennings, is he really in your plans long term? I think Leggett kind of adds something for them. If nothing else, just depth and the potential. If you don't want to pay, Debo long term, 2 or 3 years from now, Leggett could move in there and be the guy next to Brandon Ayuk. So there's a possibility there. Chiefs at 64. Do I give him another fucking receiver? No. I'm gonna give him an edge rusher here. You can never have too many edge rushers. I think Braylon Trice out of Washington might just be the best player on the board at this point, and I don't see a world where he falls out of the first 2 rounds. So let's give him Braylon Trice there out of Washington. Oh man, how long did that take? Probably a fucking while. Good lord. Let's take a look at this draft, man. See here the whole first round. Nothing too surprising, I don't feel like. McCarthy, that's the first time I had him going anywhere close to that high. So that's rare. You look at that second round again. Whatever you want to see here. All right, man. If you're still here, thank you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. And man, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
It's out the motherfucking pack. Right out. But niggas don't know how to act.